What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. It is official. Sony is skipping E3 this year, and when they put that out online, it seemed to catch some people off guard, and other people kind of expected it because of the views right now of E3 and kind of where it's heading. However, that does open up the question around what's Sony's strategy going to be this year, considering they're launching a system in November, December, the holiday season, so we assume they're going to need to advertise that they are doing so, and no E3, well, we'll talk about what they could be doing there. Also, Pokemon hit a pretty big milestone in Japan that we'll go over here, and then it looks like GameStop is struggling, yes, but they're also starting to liquidate stores, some of which may be in your area, which could actually save you a ton of money if you want to pick up different games and even systems. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. It does help out a lot. You guys have been doing that, like I said, over the past couple of weeks, and it has been helping the videos out, so I do appreciate that. And if you're brand new here, make sure you subscribe down below, the red button with the bell on. That way you can stay up to date all the gaming news going on in the gaming world. We are rolling towards 400,000 subscribers, which is crazy to say, but we are moving towards it pretty quickly, so I do appreciate everyone who is also subscribing. Today, though, we're going to start with Grand Theft Auto 4. Now, on Steam, the button to buy it just disappeared, like, randomly, which was weird. Everyone was asking, why did Grand Theft Auto 4 just randomly get delisted? It's technically, I guess, still there, but you can't buy it anymore. Well, Rockstar came out and said, hey, it's actually because of that Games for Windows Live thing. You remember that? Oh, yes. That was an annoying thing to deal with, but because Microsoft no longer supports it, but Grand Theft Auto 4 technically relies on it, they decided to pull down the ability to buy Grand Theft Auto 4, and I hope that means that they are looking at it and they're maybe patching it out, possibly. Hard to say there, but I feel like because the Steam page is still up, most likely they may have just pulled that down and said, okay, Microsoft doesn't support this, let's just go ahead and patch this thing, the reliance on the Games for Windows Live thing, and then we'll put it back up. Hopefully. We still have to wait to see when it pops back up, but I'll keep you guys up to date. Also, do you remember Skies of Arcadia? I have a feeling most of you do. Maybe you played it on the Dreamcast, maybe you played it on the GameCube. I actually played it on both, and I actually recently went back and played it a bit more on the GameCube because I picked it up pretty recently. You'll see that in a pickups video, hopefully soonish on the GameCube, which awesome version of the game, by the way, but I also played it on the Dreamcast and liked it there. I would like to see a sequel, and I'm sure anyone who remembers playing it would also like to see a sequel. Well, apparently a developer for Skies of Arcadia would as well. He posted this on Twitter. This is from Kenji Haruta, who says, strongly, I really want to develop the sequel. And that was in response to Pixel, who said one of the main devs for Skies of Arcadia is pushing people to ask for Skies of Arcadia to come back. So, yes, we all want to see most of us want to see Skies of Arcadia come back. I don't know if Sega is that interested in some of their older IPs, which is crazy to me. Even if you port it over, just see if there's interest, right? Do like a HD re-release kind of the thing. Throw it on like the eShop and the PlayStation Store and the Xbox Store. Just see what happens. Like, will people freak out and say, wow, Skies of Arcadia is here? I don't even know if I would like announce it way in advance. I would just say, hey, it's going to be on the store this week. You can go pick it up, right? And just see what kind of response you get. We've even seen people try to push for like Jet Set Radio, for example, coming back just as a re-release. So we're just, I don't know, Sega's doing some weird stuff. You feel like they have that large library of IPs. Why not leverage it? Oh, and this is a weird bit of news, mostly because it's Konami. Whenever I hear Konami, I don't even think of them as game developers or publishers or any of that anymore, because after Contra and what they've done with some of their other stuff like Silent Hill and Metal Gear becoming pachinko machines and gambling devices, I just don't really see them like the old Konami that I remember from back in like the PS2 GameCube days, but still, they're still around, and they are creating a game for the Switch. It's very strange. Anyway, this actually popped up online from Gamatsu. Solomon Program. It's going to be released for the Switch. I don't know if it's going to ever really leave Japan. This could be something that just stays in Japan, and there's still not a lot of information around it. However, Koro Online has confirmed that it is coming to the Switch, and that there will be a demo code that's going to be coming out with the January 17th issue of Koro Comic. Now, this apparently is like a monster battling game. When I saw Konami, I said, wow, really? Konami is actually doing something? Apparently they are. I would like to see them do something a bit more with something like Metal Gear. Maybe they are, and we just have to wait for them to announce it, but the fact that they haven't even brought like Metal Gear HD Collection to the Switch, but they're doing something like this, at least this is new, I guess, but still Konami, I've lost a lot of interest in what they have, but we'll see if this ever even leaves Japan. If there's an English option, at least, I guess technically you can go on the Japanese eShop and download it, but we'll see. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with Sony and E3 and the ESA. Now, the ESA, of course, runs E3. It's a very expensive venue to attend as a company showing a game or a bunch of games. Seriously, like Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony, when they were all packed in, they were spending tens of millions of dollars to be there, right? Microsoft is a little different strategy now. They're technically, I guess, across the street at their own building, their own venue there, but they do still technically hold it all around E3, and they do somewhat attend the actual part of E3, but they're still there, and they still push to be a part of that whole thing. Nintendo is like right in the middle of it with their own stand-ups and demos, and they do the treehouse there, and they have a direct, but they don't have a stage presentation anymore there. Sony actually did, but last year they decided not to attend, and now it looks like in 2020, they will not be attending once again, which does make me wonder, is that it for Sony at E3? Are they ever going back? I kind of think they are not going to go back. And there are rumors right now about Sony and the ESA kind of butting heads and having some issues with each other, and that might be one of the reasons why. But Sony did at least put out some confirmation along with some quotes saying, after thorough evaluation, SIE has decided not to participate in E3 2020. We have great respect for the ESA as an organization, but we do not feel the vision of E3 2020 is the right venue for what we are focused on this year. We will build upon our global event strategy in 2020 by participating in hundreds of consumer events across the globe. Our focus is on making sure fans feel part of the PlayStation family and have access to play their favorite content. We have a fantastic lineup of titles coming to the PlayStation 4, and with the upcoming launch of PlayStation 5, we are truly looking forward to a year of celebration with our fans. And naturally, the ESA decided to put something out little after this confirmation started to hit the internet, and it makes sense the ESA wanted to at least try to control the situation, because right now E3 doesn't look great, especially if you remember what happened last year. Of course, Sony didn't attend, but you remember a bunch of people from the press and media whose information was stored with the ESA ended up leaking online. So that was already a problem, because trust with the ESA is already really, really bad right now. But now you see Sony just not even taking E3 that seriously and not attending. Well, this is what the ESA had to say. E3 is a signature event celebrating the video game industry and showcasing the people, brands, and innovations redefining entertainment loved by billions of people around the world. E3 2020 will be an exciting, high-energy show featuring new experiences, partners, exhibitor spaces, activations, interesting, okay, and programming that will entertain new and veteran attendees alike. Exhibitor interest in our new activations is gaining the attention of brands that view E3 as a key opportunity to connect with video game fans worldwide. No mention of Sony at all there. Like at all, really. At the top, they basically said a statement about Sony, and then none of this was about Sony. I guess it was just in response. Basically, reading this, it really doesn't say much other than, guys, E3 is still a big deal. Trust us, E3 is still big. We're bringing brands in here. Don't worry. So I have to say, looking at this, I just don't think E3 is what it used to be. I think it's hurting right now. Now, they have, of course, let the public attend, which in some ways that's pretty neat. In other ways, you end up standing in line for hours to play a game for like 20 minutes. But still, I guess it's pretty cool to have everyone come together for video games all at once during the year, right? It's like one time during the year, like this block during a week where everyone just shows up and it's all video game stuff, which is really, really cool. But do we need E3 anymore? It is kind of the thing a lot of people are starting to ask, mostly because of the rise of social media and being able to put your message out there without having to go to E3 to do it. Sony showed us a logo, and it blew up on Instagram with over 5 million likes. It was just the PlayStation 4 logo with a 5 instead of a 4, and it topped Instagram charts for game companies who put out a message like that. That's ridiculous if you really think about it, and they didn't have to spend millions of dollars to be at E3 to show that logo. They showed up at CES and did it. They probably didn't have to do that. They could have just put it on Twitter, and it would have blown up as well. Now, Sony did mention that they were going to be doing some events, right, throughout this year, leading up, I guess, to the PlayStation 5 launch. They probably will have their own thing, like they did with the PS4, where ahead of E3 even, they did their own little event where they really talked about all the technical details of the PlayStation 4 and what we would get out of the system. Well, they are doing an Experience PlayStation event, it appears, in New York. They posted this up on their site, as you're seeing. It says, Experience PlayStation, January 14th, that'd be starting today, 2020, all the way through February 16th, 2020. That's noon Eastern Time to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, where they will celebrate 25 years of play with a collection of titles on PS4 and PlayStation VR. I'm not really sure what that exactly means. I don't know if they just have like booths set up where you go in and you literally try the games out. VR makes sense to try that out, by the way, to have that set up, because selling people on VR is very, very tough unless they can just try it out right there. Otherwise, though, to say, hey, VR is pretty cool, you should buy this $300 headset and then, this $400 machine for like a Pro, or $300 if you want like the base or maybe a Pro on sale. Either way, $600 to $700 just on a whim isn't easy, but if you can at least let them try it, well, it might convince them. But to have this Experience PlayStation event leading up to mid-February does make us all wonder, is that around the time that we'll start hearing, or at least an announcement for, the PlayStation 5 event towards the end of February, where they show it to us, they talk about a lot of the different details, whether it's specs and technical features, and then we're off and running with some games going towards E3, where maybe they have their own event outside of it. It's interesting stuff, but once again, E3 will be without Sony this year, and it really makes you wonder how much longer until Nintendo looks at that and goes, do we really need to spend that kind of money to be there? Because at this point, we're the only one of the big three that's actually taking up space in that convention center at E3. Microsoft's across the street, and Nintendo's in there holding a treehouse. But do they need to be? Next up, let's talk about Pokemon Sword and Shield in Japan. Of course, we at least knew it was going to sell pretty well, right? We were like, okay, look, there's a lot of controversy around it right now ahead of its release, but it's still going to do well. It's Pokemon. But I'll admit, I'm a little surprised it's done as well as it has, especially with a lot of that controversy online. It really goes to show you how far that actually goes, and that most people were still going to buy it anyway. I mean, that's basically what happened here. But to show this, let's take a look at the sales charts from Famitsu. As you can see, Pokemon Sword and Shield, it was at the top, but the biggest number here to look at is that it has already crossed 3 million units. In fact, in that week, it actually sold 196,000 units, pushing it up to 3.185 million units. That means that we have Pokemon Sword and Shield, Splatoon 2, and Smash Bros. As the only Switch games right now in Japan that have crossed that 3 million unit threshold. And that is very impressive, mostly because Pokemon Sword and Shield still have the rest of this year to sell, especially with that downloadable content coming out midway through the year and then at the end. This is probably going to end up being, I think, probably the best-selling game in Japan on the Switch straight up by the time it kind of, we assume, tails off, and then, the next Pokemon game is coming out. This will probably be it. And it really just shows how powerful Pokemon is. Even with all of that stuff going on online, right? All the pushback on social media, it still breaks records. Now we're going to find out at the end of this month how much it sold overall, because they're going to tell us numbers for games, and Pokemon, it'll probably be right up there at the top. Next up, let's talk about Ring Fit Adventure. This was an interesting story because I saw it and I said, wow, that is a whole other dimension for speed running a game, because people are currently attempting to speed run Ring Fit Adventure. And it's not at all an easy thing to do. I mean, consider this. Ring Fit Adventure, it takes quite a while. Some people are getting entire months out of this game for playing half an hour out of a time, and people are going to try to beat it in one, you can't even say sitting, right? One standing, one moving at that point. And there's a lot of things to consider around this, but we have some people now streaming their entire playthrough of Ring Fit Adventure. For example, in Tokyo, Japan, Sakinian has actually been attempting to beat their own record at this point, where they set it at just over 18 hours, playing through Ring Fit Adventure on the easiest difficulty. Now, they did try to move it up to the hardest difficulty, which I believe was, 30, and it was not something they were able to complete at the first time they did it. Like the first time they did it on easy, it was just over 18 hours. And they got a little bit through the first playthrough where it was very, very difficult, and they looked down and it was like 10 or 11 hours in. They still had quite a way to go, and if you consider how much harder it is just on your body overall, it's not an easy thing to speedrun, even on the easiest difficulty, because you're going to be up for 18 hours trying to get through this thing, and it's not even like 18 hours of like, sitting and playing the game. It's 18 hours of moving around, exercising, and attempting to will your body on while you're playing this game. It's interesting to consider that whole other dimension of speedrunning with something like Ring Fit Adventure, where you have to account for your body's overall well-being when it comes to moving around. They're talking about people having to make sure they have plenty of water, food, and other ways to keep themselves going while they're moving the whole time. It's an interesting thing to consider that as a speedrun. Like, I wouldn't have looked at Ring Fit Adventure and thought, I wonder how long it would take to speedrun that thing. I was curious how long it would be, and we started to find this out. I mean, there's just over 18 hours on the easiest difficulty in one shot, but to consider that on the hardest difficulty, that's going to be something else. But people are streaming their entire playthrough of it, and they're attempting to kind of beat that time as they go along. So it'll be interesting to see, I guess, how far they can really push this thing and where they can get that time down to. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about GameStop apparently liquidating stores now. We heard they're going to be closing stores where they weren't really needed. Like I said, in my area, there's like 4 of them within 10 minutes of where I live. Why, right? That's what it comes down to. When you see a mall and there's 2 GameStops in there, it's like, why? So it makes sense that they would close stores down that kind of are overcrowded in certain areas. And what's good about this is they're not going to ship everything away from that store. They will just run a liquidation sale. In fact, we have a list now of stores that are currently liquidating different items. You get like 70% off of games. We have systems. People are getting Switch Lites for like $120 or $130 straight up because they're just trying to get rid of this stock rather than have to ship it out and pay for shipping, because then you lose all your margins anyway. So why not just get rid of the stuff, and it's less inventory to worry about when the store inevitably closes. So what's happened here, of course, we do know that reporting for different numbers from them hasn't been great. In fact, we found out yesterday that their winter retail sales actually dropped 27.5% year on year. Not good, right? I mean, we're in this period right now where we know the next systems are coming, so we see it in the MPDs, right? Sales are dwindling on the PS4 and the Xbox One. They're up on the Switch, but the Switch can only do so much. So it makes sense why they would be down in terms of profits and revenue, and they're hoping that when the next systems show up, they'll be kind of on an uptick at that point. And I do believe they will be, but for how long is the question, with digital quickly taking over physical at this point. But let's say you wanted to stop by a GameStop and see what they have for inventory at this time and save on some different games and systems. Well, we have a list here that you can see of all the different stores, and they are kind of scattered, and I will admit, it's going to vary person to person as to which state you live in and where in that state and all of that. But if you kind of go through, you can see if any of the stores are in your area, and you can go by and see if there's anything good left over. Sometimes, though, you might go buy one and it'll be pretty empty from what I'm hearing, because, of course, people are already starting to go through everything and pick out all the good stuff. But if there's one near you within driving distance, might be worth going by to see. Also, it's not common to see a GameStop for the most part, right, in this kind of, I guess, volume go at it, or at least get shut down. So it might be interesting just to go see what that looks like even as well. But hey, go through the list, see if there's anything around you, and go save some money on some games, maybe adding to your backlog. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Millen saying, E3 is like Christmas in summer. I don't want it to go away. I like just staying home and watching all the conferences. That is the one nice thing about E3. It is in one shot. You know when it's happening, you tune in, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to see this conference, this conference, this conference, this conference, and I have all this information, all these new games to look forward to, and I don't have to wait every other month to see Ubisoft's, and I'm going to see EA's, oh, and here's Nintendo's now, and then this is something that will probably end up being spread out, because it'll be whenever they want their conference to be, according to their own fiscal years and calendars and release schedules. That could maybe that could actually work out a bit better for the companies. And depending on your view on this, maybe you like the idea of it being spread out, and maybe every other month we have a new event and a new company to talk about, right? It's hard to say there. I do like the idea of everyone coming together, though, at one time in the year. Networking is great, obviously, if you're somebody in the industry, but it's also cool just to see all the media, everything kind of come together and just talk about video games for what it's about a solid week. But we'll see what happens. It's up to the ESA. The ESA has to try to save this thing, and unfortunately, I don't have any confidence in them doing it, especially after the leaks that happened leading up to the event last year, and then, of course, the leaks around the media context. But I guess let me know if you think the ESA can save it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's E3 and Sony just skipping E3 again. Here's the question. Do you think Sony is ever going to go back to E3? This is a year where they're going to launch a brand new system and they're not even going back for that. That is surprising. To me, that means they're probably not going back and they're just going to do their own stuff, and E3 will just be a distant memory of Sony's in a few years as it is. But let me know about that and if E3 is losing its relevance at this point. Also, what do you think about Pokemon crossing the 3 million mark in Japan so quickly, about 2 months or so? And then what do you think about Ring Fit Adventure and GameStop liquidating stores? Are there any in your area, and have you gone to see what kind of deals you can get? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.